is the all-new Brackett Show. Brackett Show. And now, here's Chris Brackett.
So there I was yesterday standing next to a 10-foot polar bear. It was 10 foot tall, dude. Giant polar bear.
Crazy.
It reminded me like a Yeti.
It was just like on your property? It was just hanging out?
I was with Ernie and Frank yesterday.
Playing poker with the other deer on your property?
Yeah, no reindeer games yesterday, but I was with Ernie and Frank yesterday. It was a 10-foot polar bear. It was you can't bring them into the state, so they had to have a mock one made, and it looked like what it would look like if you made a Yeti. And it was incredible. I was in a game room yesterday and spending time with good people talking about deer. And this is the Brackett Show, episode 9.
Man, we're up to episode 9.
10,
awesome.
A 10-foot polar bear. Like, it was legit, like
crazy.
Giant. And then I got to hear all the stories about the polar bears, and then like how the dogs bait up the polar bear. And they both shot polar bears with a bow and arrow. And while hearing the story, I mentally went through their adventure by living in like a little plywood hut in the middle of the ocean, close to Greenland. Whoa. Like the whole thing, and then like shot, blood came out, and the polar bear came charging them, and quick jumped on the ski-doo and around, and they let the dogs loose, and the dogs left to go like 300 miles back to the town.
So you said ski-doo. Like, wait, isn't that like a...
Snowmobile-ish. Depends.
I like in my mind that they're using ski-doos, though.
Yeah.
They're hunting polar bears while like riding around on ski-doos in the water. That'd be amazing.
Isn't the ski-doo like the flippy one that goes up and down,
yes,
like the original? Like the trick?
I think so, yeah.
The trick ones?
Yeah, everybody's doing it. Ski-doo.
Ski-doo, bro. Hey, everybody, how are you? This is where we talk about the truth. We talk about authentic things. I try to make it as easy on Chris as I can. I'm Chris, and that's Chris.
I'm Chris, so either way.
And I try to make it easy as possible for this just to flow. You guys call in. You call the landline, 309-761-5263, 309-761-LAND, L-A-N-D, brackettshow.com, B-R-A-C-K-E-T-T, show.com. That's where you can find all the places that you've been putting it. We originally started on YouTube.
Yeah.
And then YouTube and Spotify,
yeah.
But you just recently put it everywhere.
We're everywhere because the demand was there. So we are now on Apple Podcasts, which has been exploding just over the last few days. Now that it's out there, there have been so many people that have been checking it out there. So go to Apple Podcasts, but also it's on iHeartRadio, so you can find us there. If you do that, Amazon Music, you could probably even check out on your like Alexa, different things that you have in your house. Just wherever you find your podcast, wherever you listen to, you can find it there. If you've never listened to a podcast before, you can also just go to brackettshow.com, and there's a player right there. You can play it right from the website. And you're probably watching right now. So whatever you're doing.
The best is to watch it, because it's not, to me, I never wanted to create a podcast. Like I think of it, it's probably got too much, probably sometimes has too much garbage associated with the word podcast. So I just love show. I think everything's comes down to a show, whether it's a TV show or whatever. Content, cool content, truthful content, authentic content. We try to not have Chris have to edit too much. This is where you guys ask the question and I just answer it. And a lot of it is because of my life experiences and my photographic brain and the thing that I love to do, which is land and outdoors and fish and life experiences and my journey through my salvation with Christ, and then coming alongside brothers that can help me with my journey in life, and I help them and inspire them. And vulnerable men, you're not alone in the fact that we are always feeling alone, whether we're sieging against small things in our life that just don't make sense, that are disappointing, in little things in our life, or, trying to provide for your wife and kids, and then me just, through the journey of watching my mother, succumb to cancer, and through the journey of watching Christ in that, and my mother-in-law now with my wife, and that vulnerable, tender stage of daughters and mothers, and trying to be a man and support that and give time. And life's hard.
Yeah, man.
Isn't that hard?
It is hard, but what makes it a little easier is being able to chat with friends, to hear the calls from the listeners, certainly to be, in the Word, learning about God. When we can combine all those things, then, it's a beautiful thing. So this show has been great for that.
Yeah. So this is a community. If you guys have questions about anything, just call us. Reach out in any form or fashion. We just want to tell mainly the guys listening that you're not alone. Life's hard. Deer idols, hunting are idols. People are horrible. Try not to be the horrible one. Try to have some grace. Try to have some calm, but stand up for who you are. We got a big election coming up, and make sure you're at the polls and voting, even though we live in a state that it probably won't matter, but you just that sacrifice and support, like you know what to do, you know what to believe it. Did you see the stuff that was that old KH was saying at that the guy yelling, Jesus is Lord, and he was told that he was at the wrong rally?
Well, I did.
You think it's out of context?
Kind of. So, if you do watch that, so you can hear that said. You can also hear other people yelling liar, and so I think that she heard some people heckling and was just like, "Hey, what are you doing here?" But
it's amazing how things can be twisted.
Yeah.
Like, very clearly, I think you stand where you stand. This one's a very clear thing. I think you just have to stand there, right? Like, I think you just have to stand where you stand without repeating myself too many times, and just go like, what is important? I forget who I was listening to, but they were talking about it's not one issue. It's not like, well, abortion is that the way we feel about abortion. It's different than when I was a child. Like, I was going to have my girlfriend get an abortion. Now, there was a miscarriage, and, things like that in my life have completely changed. And I knew that God was even in control in that. A very young person scared. I was a young person scared of what people would think of me. And God took that off my hands. And no way, shape, or form did we go through that. But, there's big topics like that I think, one, bonds people, but also divides people. And I think our Lord wants us to discuss those things and care about the people that are trying to make the tough decisions. And I think education and emotion and all of those things, if looked at purely and scrubbed to the Bible, are easy to talk about.
Yeah, man.
Right?
Well, and like you were kind of saying, but praying for our leaders, whoever they are.
That's right.
Be praying for them because they need our prayers.
And we love coffee.
We do.
So our first question comes to you from Haunting Day Coffee Company. This flavor, or flavors of Texas. It's a little cattle drive this morning. So hit us with the morning wake-up call.
Wakey, wakey, wakey.
Wake up.
Chris, hi, this is Ethan from Missouri. I wanted to call in and see if you'd had a chance to do me a quick favor. I've got a first-time youth hunter this year. My turning 6, November 1st, and here in Missouri, our youth season is the 2nd and 3rd of November. So she's only had to wait one whole day to go youth hunting.
Oh my gosh.
I was going to see if you could do a quick favor for me and say a little prayer for us on our first hunt to see if that can help out a little bit. We've Scout and I both have been attending church regularly, and I know it would mean a lot to her to hear someone like you give us a little prayer for our first hunt together. I hope to meet you one day for a consult, and I appreciate everything you do. Thanks, man. Take care.
What was it? A little girl?
Yeah, so his girl, it cut out when his daughter. Yeah, I don't know if he said her name, but his daughter, yeah.
Sky or Skylar or something. Like, I think it was an S.
Yeah.
I think it was S. Anyways, yeah. Dear Lord, we ask you to look out after all the youths going out for the first time. Let them process that in their head, let them soak in the, I don't know why I'm getting emotional. Let them soak in the everything, the coffee brewing in the morning, the thermos, the ride there, make sure you take a nap in the morning because you couldn't sleep at night, riding in your dad's truck and headed to the property. Make sure it's about the teaching and the element of keeping everything, stacking the Jenga blocks to increase the opportunity of an encounter for critters and things and stuff. And Lord, we know that you'll be in it. Just the sacrifice of this father, knowing that he's going to take out his daughter and they're going to go see your glory with the world waking up. We just ask you to protect them and protect all the youth and mentors out there taking youth hunting. So good luck in Jesus' name. Amen. Amen. A little emotional there, man.
Yeah,
my dad didn't take me. He had all the opportunities in the planet to be able to take me to youth hunting. He tried. It's not that he didn't want to. He was very taken back by the world and in what the world kept kind of leading him in sin in that, my mom and dad were divorced and he kind of left my mom and he was searching his own stuff and he always wrestled with his own demons. And I think a lot of men do, which has affected me poorly. But the only thing I ever wanted to do was just go squirrel hunting with my dad. I didn't care about deer. The greatest hunt that I ever had with my father was in Marshall County on state ground, 20 gauge. They didn't even have orange youth vests back then. I had got my hunting license and took my class. I was wearing a Peoria Prancers bright red jacket because my dad was like, well, there's no way the game warden's going to give us a ticket. You're wearing this bright red, you're trying. It's orange if you're colorblind, and he's wearing his orange. At the time, I think I was wearing that because on state ground, I think you had to wear orange. And so he had me in that and we were sitting on a hillside and I saw 2 squirrels that day, a long ways away. But all of a sudden this 6-point buck come down this hill and was standing there at about 20 yards. The mist in the morning and the dew. And it was just the greatest day of my life was me sitting there with my dad on the side of a hill, squirrel hunting and having a 6-point buck walk out at 20 yards staring at me. And my dad leans over to me. I'll never forget this. Leans over and he says, he's staring at the deer on your jacket. Cause I had the little Peoria Prancer logo. Yeah. And I was young, man. And I freaked out and it's probably what addicted me to deer at a young age was I got to get as close to those things as possible for the rest of my life. So enjoy that youth stuff out there. Listen, if you can take a word of advice from me, from that little kid with that little Prancer deer on his jacket from our hockey team when I was back in the 80s. I am a big advocate for years until that young child is able to put up their own stand, put up their own blind, get their own stuff together in hunting. I don't let them shoot a buck. Passing it's easy to go shoot a buck on my place. My nephews my nephew Zane at 5 years old with a 20 gauge killed his first doe. But he had passed up 15 bucks before we even got an opportunity at a doe. Now, whether that lives, it took him 5 years and finally this big 5-year-old comes out and he shoots a 5-year-old with a crossbow. But my other nephew, he worked a little harder and he had some opportunities to take some smaller bucks. Had to kind of make it more special for him because he was the second child is always the wild one, right?
Sure.
And so youth season, big deal, huge opportunity. Shout out to the state organizations that are putting this. We didn't have youth season when I was a kid. So big shout out to them. And then I'm just going to say, make it about the opportunity and the glory out in the woods rather than the trophy. Don't let them shoot a 200-incher. Don't let them shoot a booner. I've got a Boone and Crockett whitetail on my property. If it walked out in front of my youth hunter, no way I'd let them shoot it. They're ruined forever. You might as well give them Jordans and PS32s and they got out now, who knows, PS5 or whatever. Like, you might as well spoil them to death. That's not helping them in any way. So kick it a little old school, let them take a doe and make them work for that buck. Make them help you put together stands with, wrenches and things. Make them work for it, man. So that's the only thing I can say about youth season. I love it, but make them work for it, man. Don't just give it to them because you didn't get it from your father.
Well, okay. So as we get into this episode, I know there's something that I want to kind of reintroduce. So we did it on the first episode, which we're in episode 9 now. In episode 1, I did a little segment called "Would You Rather." So this is a little bit of a controversial topic, and I need you to make a decision which way you'd go. So you can talk about it for a little bit.
I'm so scared of controversy.
Yeah, I've noticed that. I get that sense, right? Okay, so let's talk broadheads.
Okay.
All right, broadheads. So would you rather hunt with fixed blade or expandable?
Oh, boy.
Let's see what you have to say. Yeah.
So everybody gets pretty fired up here. I'm going to go a little in depth with it. Everybody knows me to be an expandable guy. Why do I shoot an expandable? If they would allow me to shoot an expandable 3 inches or bigger, I would shoot an expandable on everything from a whitetail and under. So whitetail, mule deer, antelope, but when you get into elk and you get into moose, I'm a fixed blade guy. And then what kind of expandable, Chris Brackett? Well, I am shooting the Beast 2.3 this year. So Bomar Broadhead. Greg Poole sent me some to try. They're pretty scary. If they weren't called the Beast, I would call them the Trap. Literally, bro, they are the sharpest. They're sharper than any scalpel or blade I have to gut or cut deer. I've never seen anything so sharp. Like they're scary sharp from the point to the blades. They have like a spring in them that flips them open. I feel that they'll go around bone pretty good. And I am blown away by the sharpness, I think. A big cut, sharpness, put them in the back of the lungs and the liver. If somebody is out there thinking that they're going to hug the shoulder with an expandable, they're silly. Will this go through it? I'm not even going to test it. Have I lost giant whitetails because I've shot them in the shoulder with a giant expandable? Absolutely. Have I killed more whitetails because I shot them in the liver or even the guts than shooting them in the shoulder? Absolutely. So I would rather have you put on a 2.5-inch cut diameter Rage or Beast, or let's go through some of the other ones. Wasp. Somebody should maybe come out with there used to be a broadhead called a Rocket Sidewinder and a Rocket Steelhead. These expandables, the reason why I would suggest if somebody's hunting whitetails to shoot an expandable is because there's not very many bow techs out there. And by bow tech, I mean technical person working on a bow, knowing the dynamic spine of the arrow and the 4 fletch and the 3 fletch and a helical and a this and a that, and knowing your arrow and your perfect setup. And there's just not a lot of people that are that good with setting up their bow to make an arrow fly dynamically to where you're going to get excellent, perfect rotation and flight with the flex of an arrow, the paradox of an arrow flying, that you're going to be able to tune a fixed blade broadhead. When I first started, you had the Razorbacks and the Thunderheads and the 3-blade green muzzies and the blue 4-blade 100-grain muzzies. And those were your only options with fixed blades. And if you were shooting under 260 feet per second with a let's say a XX 75, 25, 14, or some big aluminum shafted arrow, you could shoot these fixed blades because it had the big vanes. This was before Duravanes and Vane Techs and all these different vanes. You had these long 5-inch vanes on the back of these arrows. No weight forward of center. there was an art to shooting fixed blades back then. But I think what comes down to the whole topic of why people shoot fixed blades to why they shoot expandables is a whitetail deer, the front half of the deer in his shoulder area where these guys with fixed blades like to aim, hug it tight to the shoulder, hug it tight to the heart. If they were really able to do some research and watch slow-mo video over and over like I have in my career, you'll notice that the front half of the deer, no matter how fast your bow is, the front half of the deer ducks faster than the middle of the deer. So if your goal is to kill the animal and you're putting a sword through the middle of an animal, even if in its liver, it'll bleed out faster than pinning its shoulder blades together, where really there's not very much lungs up there anyways. So to me, it makes perfect sense to use a giant cutting diameter fixed blade or expandable broadhead, whether that be with bands or Grim Reapers using like a little clasp, or a beast using more of kind of a spring trap, like a mouse trap type design with the springs in it. Or if you're using a schwacker, if you will. So is that rain I hear?
You're hearing rain. I know.
Come on.
It's like an answer to prayer,
Come
like as we're
on,
going.
rain. Come on,
literally,
rain.
as we're recording this, I heard
Yes.
like thunder, and then
rain.
like it's pretty well insulated in the studio, and so the fact that we can hear it, it's coming down hard.
I'm excited.
It's coming down hard.
Remember, hey, what was I talking about deer? Don't just like a deer is not sitting right now in his bed going, I think this evening, I'm going to get up and go check some of my scrapes, do a little peeing in some of my scrapes, poking my eye with the little poker. They're not doing that. They're just like, I'm really excited for rain. The electrons in the air are being released, and the energy and everything changes when the rain comes. Everybody's going to be in a good mood. People are probably going to be driving like idiots, and the deer are going to be all over the place.
I saw like
I'm going hunting
your
tonight.
personality like
I'm going
immediately
hunting
changed.
tonight.
You're talking and you're like, wait, what?
I'm going hunting tonight.
There's a disturbance in the forest.
Donger may go down, but literally that's what the deer went. It's on. And just like we did, like, so it's a refreshing of the world. Otherwise, God wouldn't have created it like that. So pretty stoked. I don't even know what we were talking about.
You were talking about broadheads, but I mean, you were at that point talking about expandable, but
so the advantage is this: if you're shooting giant, big, fat, furry, double fat, furry animals like elk or moose, I have lost them because of an expandable. So if I'm going elk hunting, I'm probably going, I whitetail hunt 90 days a year. I'm going to screw on a beast expandable. I used to use Rage Extremes. I'm going to screw on an expandable that is going to hit where my field point hits, and I'm going to go hunt whitetails for 90 days. Because if I bump my bow, getting in and out of the truck, climb into my stand, into my blind, I have a better chance of still hitting my paper plate or my target with an expandable than if I use a fixed blade and it exaggerates, right? The problem I would have if I bumped my rest or bumped my side or bumped my arrow or something, it steers it from the front of the arrow rather than behind. So like an expandable, realize that it tries to make it as small as possible to be like a field point. And a fixed blade is like, directing it with the cutting diameter and the big stuff up front. Now I was talking to Frank yesterday about like grizzly sticks, or I think there's something called, like, they always make them so tough, iron will.
Nice.
Yeah, and they make them like, I'm forged out of iron from the medieval times. One bevel cuts them all, like an inch diameter. Yeah, of course that thing's going to fly, but it's not very big. Like, it's a game of centimeters where I needed to cut an artery, not just poke a hole in a lung. And I think people get like that. It's like, well, I can kill a deer with a field point if I hit where I aim. Like, you're absolutely correct. But you might as well shoot a field point that expands into a 3-inch sword. And I can't put a sword inside the body of an animal halfway through it without it bleeding out, where I could take this sharp pen and stick it completely through an animal's body. One's not going to make it to the hospital, and one is going to make it to the hospital. And the expandable at 3 inches or 2 inches is not going to allow anything in the cavity of its body to make it to the hospital without bleeding out first. So that's my rant, is expandable all day long, every day. You can be dumb and have a bad tuned bow and still kill animals with an expandable. And I'd rather be dumb and lucky than good and smart. I don't know.
Yeah, man.
Maybe I'm all of them sometimes.
Dumb, lucky,
don't
good,
ask my
and
wife.
smart.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I do cut my own hair now.
Well, yeah, you were telling me about that, which I mean looks good.
I'm proud
Looks
of
good.
it.
When you cut your hair, are you using a fixed blade or an expandable?
I'm using a movable trimmer.
You just stand there and have Jody shoot arrows at your head.
Yeah, no, I do it. I could shave with a beast probably. Like, they're pretty sharp.
Yeah.
They're pretty sharp. I have an update on a couple pieces of property.
Okay.
Before you have
Hit
another
me.
question.
Let's do it.
So I have that property. It is for sale. It's like to declare. My name is Chris Brackett. I am a broker. I have a broker's license to sell land in Illinois. I work for Herman Brothers Realty in Hannah City, Illinois, and I have a property for sale that's 25 acres in Fulton County with a 50 by 30 beautiful little building on it. Sits up above CRP field. So the landowner called, a friend of mine, and he said, "Hey, I want to sell my property. It's still for sale. It's under $240,000. It's 25 acres with this beautiful building, rock driveway, electric to it. It's a great place for somebody to come in and have a nice little investment, finish the inside of the building, have a fire pit." And the way it lays, man, it lays in like London Mills, Ellisville, Fulton County, Illinois, with big deer on it. And he had never killed a deer on it. Had never killed a big deer on it. And I said, "Hey, this is real easy. Let's tuck a blind here and let's go carve out this little 8 acre food plot, and let's put some white gold and some grains in it and stuff, some Klondike." And so what I did is I went and I sprayed this little plot, and I got this overhanging branch, and I pulled it off the back of there, and I put this little blind in, and he showed up with his family, and we tucked this little thing. And if we sell it, somebody's going to be able to hunt this food plot in this blind. No one's bought it yet. So I'm like, "You might as well hunt it." So he sits down. He goes there the other night on the full moon.
Okay.
The vampire walk.
How
This
about
is
that?
proof in the concept of not only consulting, but I look at my wife and I go, "There's no way it's this easy." So my friend that's owned this property goes with his family. We put the blind up. We put the food plot in. We designed the food plot. And I said, "This is the only place you got to hunt on the whole property. Don't worry about hunting the rest of it. The big bucks are going to come through." He goes in there the other night on the full moon after listening to the podcast, sits down, is only there a couple hours, and the biggest buck of his life walks out, and he shoots it at 20 yards and kills the biggest buck of his life.
Boom.
And it's early in the season. That property's still for sale. And he's like, "Man, this should help sell it." And I said, "Well, people that are buying it, they like live deer on their property." I'm like, "Well, it's just somebody's fault that they didn't buy it yet." I have 2 cameras on there set on video on mock scrapes. I'll guarantee that buck and several other bucks are on that. I'm going to go check them here in the next couple days. But that farm is still for sale. Just killed a beautiful 145-inch deer in the food plot at 20 yards. This is a property that somebody could have and they could use as a place to hunt and a place to camp, and then have leases around that area if they're like from out of state. Or if you're from Peoria or Bloomington or somewhere and you're looking for 25 acres, I've seen quail on it, I've seen turkey on it, and there's plenty of deer on it, and really easy to hunt. Have a fire pit. You can go to land.com and check that out. And just type in Fulton County 25 acres and you'll see it pop up, Herman Brothers Realty. And it's really affordable. It's a nice little starter property, and the inside could be finished, and then you could live there. Like, it's got electricity and everything there. So
Awesome.
that's an update on, not only did we set a plan, put a food plot in, and kill that buck on that plot. So easy. A lot of times it is that easy, just a different look and a pullback. from invading too much in a nice little food plot where they have to come under 40 yards. And that's what happened here. And then on the 61 acres in Clinton, I have a guy walking it right now that is from Clinton. He's walking it. He wants to split it into 30 acres and 30 acres. It's 61 acres in DeWitt County that I personally own with my wife, that has developed by food plot Kevin there. And he has 30 years of history on this property, I believe 30 years, where he didn't kill a doe. There are more shooter bucks on that farm than any other farm that I have. And I'm trying not to hunt it because I want the new owners to be able to, even close on it or hunt it this year and take 2 magnificent 150-inch 5-year-old deer. I've got 7 acres of beans on it, 5 different other food plots. It's got everything, big habitat to the back, big oaks, walnuts, 2 huge ditches that could be beautiful bodies of water, and then access from the one side that you can get in the timber with these south morning winds and get incredible rut activity. That is DeWitt County. That's 730,000. Realize that it's only 61 acres, but what you're getting is you can buy $1 million farm of hundreds of acres and never have the quality of this property. It's a thick property that comes out to all these food plots and goes out to big ag, which is the key to growing big deer consistently over and over and over. And I really want to sell that farm. I don't want to split it up, but this guy's looking at it, wants to split it up. And so I'm probably going to come up with a listing tonight of like a 40-acre tract and a 20-acre tract, 21-acre tract, and then list those along with the 61 acres in DeWitt. But if you go there to land.com and type in DeWitt County 61 acres, you're going to see unbelievable pictures. But if you can't afford 730, you could buy 40 acres at the back and sell off the front 21, or I can keep the front 21 and sell that off to somebody that wants to build a house. Like, I'm here to educate you as a real estate professional, and help you get your dream property. So, really kind of cool. I mean, that's kind of my update. And we have had people call already and get paperwork and contracts out for consulting, which will start as the season winds down in December and January, which is, anywhere between 5,500 and 7,500. I come to your farm, we come up with a plan, we spend years executing that plan, developing it, and it's really not fair to the deer. That's what I like to think.
Yeah, man. You're giving them an unfair advantage.
Somebody told me the other day, he was describing it as, what I do is I almost teach them to count cards.
Yeah.
That's the best way you could describe it. Like, somebody's paying me to bring them in to count deer cards, like teach them. It's a cheat code, man. And whether that be growing food or strategizing or blinds or a different way to look at it, by far is it worth the whitetail equity that you put into the strategy to the farm, rather than just having a piece of dirt that you pay for. You're bringing whitetail value to it. You're bringing equity to it. And so the way I look at it is, if somebody has a $500,000 farm and they're paying $5,500 for a console or something, from me, is we're going to 100% double that equity instantly by having that professional plan put on your property.
Yeah, you were mentioning consulting. We have information about that. If you go to bracketshow.com, there's information about that. There's also links. There's a form. There's a lot of things to get connected. So if you want to connect with Chris about that specifically, we have ways to do that. So yeah, check that out.
Bracketshow.com, BRACKETT show.com. Links to all the episodes, if you're just catching this one for the first one.
Yeah, check them out. All right. Well, let's get into some questions.
Okay, cool.
Hey, Chris, this is Tyler out of North Louisiana. Love the show. Always been a big fan. And just wanted to get your thoughts on the moon phases and the full moon, and how do you think it affects rut times or buck activity? Because, for an example, I go to Missouri pretty much every year. And 2020, the full moon was Halloween. And I set my dates from, November 1st through the 7th for my vacation, and the bucks were everywhere running. chasing, grunting, doing their thing. And we set the dates the very next year, same place, 2021, around that first November. And the new moon was November 4th. And I'm telling you what, there was nothing going on. I'm not saying there wasn't any chasing going on, but I saw bucks together. Spoke with Jay Gregory. I know you know him. He said bucks were hanging out together and it was going to be a later rut. And you see these guys in the industry say that moon phase has nothing to do with the times of the rut. It happens at the same time every year. Just what are your thoughts on that? But I know I experienced it firsthand, how powerful that moon is. But just keep doing what you're doing. Love that you're keeping the Lord involved, and keep sharing the gospel, man. God bless.
It's all for the kingdom. It's a cool question. It's a sliding scale. So it's a sliding scale, right? Moon is one thing, right? So we've got this full moon slider, new moon slider. Then we have this weather slider, right? Or if you want to look at it, so I see it, I see things, right? Like, so I'm not completely nuts. I see things, though, right? But I'm picturing things, and then I try to explain it to you. Slot machine, right? Slot machine would be vertical. Slot machines, they'd have to line up. So I would say moon is one of them. It's a sliding scale, like a grading scale, okay? So we've got this sliding moon. New moon's going to be really close to Halloween. That means that there's zero moon. So on the other side of the planet, it's blocked by, right? Blocked by Earth?
Yeah.
Yep. So it's going to be really dark out there. That affects animals. So the only thing that I can't tell you that I'm a moon professional, but I can tell you when the odds are in my favor. I talk about the full moon and then where it is, and then the 3 days, 2 days, 3 days before the full moon is just the greatest time to hunt whitetails. And it doesn't matter if it's hot, doesn't matter if it's cold, it doesn't matter anything. The 2 or 3 days before the full moon, which will be the 13th, 14th, and 15th. If you're asking me when to take off work, I believe 1, 2, and 3 of November is going to be absolutely fire. If you want to go back to 2020, I think he said 2022, that full moon was on Halloween. Or the new moon was on Halloween. How did he say it? I know he's wrong. I know he's wrong if he was saying, okay, let me back up. I know last year the full moon was October 28th, right? So 2022 is, I think, what he said, and he said it was like November 4th. That would make more sense. This year, we had 28. Before that, we had November 4th, and this year we have the 15th. So think of what you said with that full moon and what's going on. I think he's off on his dates a little bit because they normally don't coincide. So I'm just going to start over. Brother, you're going to be coming off of a new moon headed to a full moon the first 2 weeks of November, and they're going to be fire. You're going to randomly pick between November 1 and November 15th to be your vacation days, and when you come to the Midwest, it is all going to depend on what's the first secret, Chris?
Weather trumps everything.
Weather trumps everything. So you're going to go by weather. If you got a sliding scale that when you can leave work and when you can come, look for that weather. You're going to look for those changes. You're going to look for 55 degrees and 30 degrees being the norm. If you get those, you've got a really good front, and the deer are going to move. You get those hot temperatures. My guess is if you go back to that season when you had it great, you had really good, consistent west winds. You had a high pressure system, which is like 30 point, what was Bobby Kendall and me discussing the other day? 30.2 and up is like your key when your moon's rising. Like, there's a lot more to that sliding scale. Look at the weather, look at the moon, and then look at, you're going to have a lockdown phase, and that's going to be individually with what your farm looks like on individual bucks. But in general, weather, and then looking at that moon. If I got to tell you when that I was going to take a trip, I think that's what comes down to the question. If I was leaving Illinois, Chris, to go somewhere, when am I going to travel for the best big, giant, mega giant deer movement? I've got 7 days or 5 days to hunt. Do you know when that is? Weather trumps everything. Third week of November, always.
All right.
Think of it. Should be normalized. Later in November is going to be colder than earlier in November. I'm going to pick consistent weather, being that 15th, 16th, 17th, 18th-ish. Kill more big deer between that 13th and that 18th than I have in October or at the beginning of October. If I'm traveling, I'm going for that colder week, that week where the bucks have been locked down through the 11th, 12th, 13th. Yeah, I can get lucky. In early November, they lock down. That 8th seems good. But if consistently you said, Chris, when are you going? I am always going to pick that 13th, 14th, 15th, 16th, 17th, 18th. And I've consistently killed more giant deer on their feet, tired, 40 pounds less in their body weight, and getting ready to find that last doe, kind of exhausted, let their guard down. Some of them may be beat up and wounded, and I can catch them slipping and take them home to Uncle Bubby's house and hang them up.
We were talking about weather, so here's another question about that in regards to the rut.
Hey, Chris. Hey, it's Carson from Ohio. I sure do appreciate what you're doing for all of us. I've learned a lot, and you're becoming one of the best podcasts for me to listen to and learn. Quick question. It looks like rut is going to be a hot topic for you coming up in November. Looks like another warm November in the Midwest. What's your opinion on that, and how to target these big bucks once if they go nocturnal during the rut, because it's pretty warm out? That's all I got. Appreciate what you do. Thanks for what you do.
Well, Chris, that's why it comes down to thanks, Carson. That's why it comes down to leaving your farm alone in October, right?
You've been talking about it.
I mean, it goes back to do we think that pressure, do we think that human pressure is the number one determinant? Is that the right word, determinant?
I mean, that's a nice word. It's a big word.
I think the number one thing in the world for whitetails is human pressure. I think number two is when do they move? Weather, cold. And then number three being food. And number four being some type of moon phase, if you will. So if we kind of go through those rules, if I'm leaving my property alone in the timber and in the thicker stuff that I am saving for November, sweet November, it doesn't matter if it's hot out or not. That thing, that big furry thing with all the giant antlers on its head, huge, walking around the timber in November, huge. That's why you got to watch. I'm doing a Trump impression. Huge. He hasn't been pressured. He's been there all October doing deer stuff, doing ruddy deer stuff in the timber, getting jiggy, fighting, no pressure. You're hunting the edges in October evenings. He's left alone. So Carson, when you go slipping in there, November 1, November 2, November 3 to these first sets in the timber on sweet November, it doesn't matter if it's 80 or 30 out. He doesn't know you're there. You're tagged out in Ohio before the 5th of November. That's why you're leaving the timber alone in early October. So I'm already putting my odds in the favor. Even if I'm going to have a hot, tough November of hunting, I'm in there in the mornings. Even if it's 85 in the middle of the day in November, we still got cool nights with dew and crunchy leaves and all that stuff. And I'm hunting places I haven't hunted all October in November mornings, and I'm killing my deer. And then I'm going on vacation with my wife. And so we don't have to worry about it being 85. You don't have to grind it out. You've left your timber alone all early October in the morning, all October in the mornings. You slip in November and they're dead first or second hunt. It's not even fair. That's what I got to say about that.
All right.
Let's go,
Hi,
Carson.
Chris. This is Trayton, and I'm from Central Iowa. And I just got to say, I love the new format and everything you're doing. And my question is, what are your thoughts on all-day sits, specifically during the rut, and if they're worth it, how often you do it, and yeah, thank you.
13th, 14th, 15th November. Get ready, Iowa. Doesn't matter where you're at. Iowa, Illinois, Ohio, Michigan, Minnesota. We are going to be all day sitting, boys and girls. Let's start a campaign. Somebody make us a shirt.
Oh, we could do that.
13th, 14th, 15th. We're sitting all day, boys and girls. Tell the wife, check out of work, do whatever we got to. Full moon's on the 15th, the evening of the 15th, not the morning. We're going to be sitting the 13th, 14th, 15th, period. Carve it out. If we're not tagged out by then, we're sitting all day. Okay? I am going to always let the cameras dictate. Be careful in Iowa. They're going to start cracking down on the fact that if you get a picture of a deer and it helped aid in the discovery of deer or whatever, just don't put stuff on social media. Then they won't question you, okay? But look at what the cameras are telling you. Look at what your friends are telling you. Look at what the reports are. If you have a specific, how do I say that? Specific?
Well,
specific?
I don't know how you say it. I say specific.
I can't say it clearly. Okay, specific deer that you're after, or a couple of them in an area, you're going to be able to hone in on their area. I call it kind of the sex bowl. Like they're going to be down in a very rut breeding area that for a short period of time, if that area is hot and those cameras are located in the right spots, that is going to dictate whether you're sitting all day. Let those cameras tell you if they're cruising. This is what it comes down to with trail cameras and things like that, to answer your question, is you have to have this sixth spidey sense to know that you have to play a card in front of the deer, not chase the trail cameras. Well, today he was walking during the middle of the day and I should sit tomorrow all day long. Nope. You're kind of behind him. Look what he's doing, how he's frenzying up on this rut phase. And then take a gut feeling. You're in Iowa, you see deer on the road. There's more 150s there than any place in the world. I think that top end is, that John Denver's full of crap. I don't know if the top end Iowa deer are what they are all cracked up to be in the world of whitetail, but I know the 145 to 150 Iowa deer are awesome, and they're something of magical unicorns running around, and they're everywhere. They are behind every tree, so don't say those big ones aren't behind. A 145 is a big deer. So if you're hunting a core area big deer, you're going to be doing those all day sits on the 13th, 14th, 15th. And then other than that, you're going to try to play a card and pick one day. I try to pick one day that I go in and I let the morning unfold. And if that morning tells me that I need to stay all day, I stay all day. There have been times, Chris, when I went in the morning with no water, no food, just me and my bow and my grunt call. And I've sat down and I've watched the world come alive and bucks chasing does all over and does coming through that were in estrus. And I end up staying all day and grinding out through that and then killing a deer at 4:50 or 4:45 right before dark. And I had sat there, 10 hours and I planned on not staying. So a lot of that for me is organic. I don't plan on going, well, that day I'm going to spend all day. I go in and whatever's telling me the mood of the deer, I'm going to tell me if I'm staying. And I'll make my wife's understanding. She'd be like, good, stay out there all day.
Well, speaking of organic, we talked about this before, but so we're doing all these questions, which is awesome that people are calling in, which if they want to call, they can call the landline at 309-761-5263. That is 309-761-LAND. And we'll get into some more questions, but you have no idea what's coming every time.
No.
Like I try to line them up and see what you do. So
yeah, we've had feedback that people are like, man, that's so authentic. And I'm like, well, our goal came from Dave Ramsey's show live. And one day it's be really cool if we go live where you guys can call into these questions. But for right now, this is where we're at. We're taking these questions, shooting this as organic and authentic as possible. And I think the main reason I'm able to answer most of these questions with truth, honesty, and actual knowledge of the world or wherever I've been in the whitetail land life is because of my photographic memory. Like I think that's important for people to understand. Like, it's not that I went and did these adventures and I study deer in my yard and at my farms every single day, and I don't have kids, so this is all I've dedicated my life to, is that I remember and I play every deer that I've ever seen walk and when correlations with that moon, and that's where the information comes from, is I'm regurgitating as much of the multiplication problem. You ask about moon, that's a 2. You ask about weather, that's a 4. And I see those in my brain. And so when I can calculate them up and give you honest feedback, and if I don't know, I just tell you I don't know. But if I can put those together and say, this is where I would lean to, I'm confident in that decision of what I talk about. And if I don't know, I just don't know.
yeah, so you can answer because you have a photographic memory, and I can play those questions because I have hands. So
baby.
So let me use those hands and play up another question for you.
Hey, Chris, this is Kevin from Indiana. Just a couple questions. One's more of a personal question. I see in some of these videos wearing a Hampshire's hog hat.
Oh, yeah.
Hey, did you grow up showing pigs or raising pigs? What's your connection there? I raise pigs here in Indiana and deer hunt a lot as well. So from the deer hunting side, break down the moon phases. What's your favorite? I know some guys will say, weather trumps moon. Maybe give us that best case scenario with weather and which moon phase to pair with that. But I just would love to hear your thoughts on the moon phases, which ones you love, which ones you hate. Thanks for all you do. Bye.
My favorite hat in the world is a hat that I got when I was 13 years old on Peter's Hog Farm in Mendon, Illinois. They raised Hampshires, Yorkshire, and Durocs. Do you know the difference?
I don't know the difference.
Okay,
I mean, I could make
black and
up.
white in the middle, black on both sides, the Hampshire, and then you've got a Yorkshire, which is your typical Charlotte's Web, like white hog,
Sure.
right? And then you have a Duroc, which is like a red Duroc, and now, they breed all of them together, and it's all for the best pork chops and the best pork butts and all this other stuff. But back in the day, in the 80s and the early 90s, even into 2000s, it was all about show pigs and going to the fair. I never have personally hit one with a little black piece of pipe around a ring and actually showed, but the gills, the females that hadn't had a litter of hogs, the gills, they would, I would clean them all up and shave them and get them ready to show. And then Tad and his brother would show them, and Mark Peter would judge them. And yeah, man. So I grew up on summers on a hog farm, and I thought one day I wanted to be a hog farmer, and that just didn't work out. Now I'm a deer farmer. But I do. I still have that hat. If I could find another one, it's all mesh. It's got a little patch on the front that says, Hampshires are the best. And that's my hog story, man. So Western Illinois, hog farmer. I would consider myself a hog farmer. I was just a really young one that didn't really do a lot except for play with the pigs. But as far as the moon phase, we've covered it. I think the best suggestion for me is a no free shout out, or whatever they say on Bussin' with the Boys or whatever. I think Adam Hayes' Red Moon. I know my friend Nathan Lee really believes in the Red Moon. I think it's a downloadable app. I think if you're looking for a reason or advice type thing, I think you look up the Red Moon, and I think you go ahead and do a free sample trial or check it out for the year. I think it's a really good thing that tells you when the moon's rising. I think it's very scientific, and then there are some deery stuff around it. I think tomorrow on Wednesday, I am set to do a hunter podcast, HUNTR. Hopefully they give us shouts out, but they're my friends, Jeremy and Jared, and I'm supposed to do that with them. And I'm going to ask them about Forge. I use OnX, but no one from OnX talks to me, or OnX Hunt or whatever. I don't know anybody at any of these companies. Unsolicited, I pay for them. And then Forge is supposed to be a new one that is a very super high look. I think it's got moon and weather and deer study, trackable collar deer movement, wind, and correlation. It's some high tech redneck stuff, bro. And I'm going to ask Jared and Jeremy about Forge because I know they're friends with him. I think he's on today. So I'm going to get some more info on that. Other than that, I use Onyx. I asked Nathan about what he's seen on the Red Moon app, which is an old friend of mine, Adam Hayes. And if you're going to be looking for something moon-wise, I think you look up that Red Moon application. That's kind of my advice. I just hunt every day, and I invade when the conditions are right, when the weather's right, and the wind's consistent. I hunt every day as long as the wind's consistent. That's what I go by. I don't care about the moon. I just can tell you, like, if I get the 2 days before the full moon, I'm going to kill one. Right? So, yeah, it's kind of where we're at.
Yes. Hey, Chris and Chris. This is Josh from Pennsylvania calling again. Wanted to give you, Chris Brackett, a huge shout out and thank you for all the help and knowledge you've been providing on the show, and all the work you've taught me, because I did do the seeding with the winter wheat and winter rye, and it is growing great.
Attaboy.
Looking forward to getting the clover in for the spring.
Perfect.
And see how that takes off. And my question is, for the rut coming up, do you hunt on field edges over scrapes, or do you hunt up in the timber, up on the top of a mountain or in the hardwoods? Or best place, I guess, to try to locate the bigger, mature buck? Thank you.
Well, Josh, thanks for calling in with the compliments for us. Josh called earlier in the year, or earlier in our episodes here. He asked about poor man's kind of food plot, what he could do with minimal equipment. We talked to him about grain and rye and things that grow down to like 39 degrees in the soil. He must have got more rain than us. So he put down a bunch of grain, winter wheat, winter rye, and it's actually growing. It's going to be a good plot, great basis for him. And then he's going to hit the white gold with Clover Rush, which has got the big perennial leaves. And he's going to go frost seed this in March, kind of in the snow or in the frozen ground with the cracks and stuff. And that's where white gold comes in. They've been a good supporter of us. So you can buy a Klondike blend that'll be your grains, and then go in the spring, frost seed, and then spray IMOX. So that's what my man Josh is talking about from Pennsylvania. Now, when it comes to the rut, Josh, I think there's a couple things. End of October, you're going to be field edges, little thickets. Find where your multiflora rose is. You guys know what multiflora rose is, all these stickery stuff and whatever in this browse. It's going to be a great place to find a buck bedded close to outside of an edge of a field that's going to be hitting scrapes and things like that. That's your end of October plan as the rut starts to get going. Pennsylvania, normally a younger generational influx of bucks, which are 2 and 3 years old. You don't get a lot of really old deer, so you're going to be looking for them to do stupid stuff around the edge of fields into these thickets. Make sure that your wind is good. I feel that in Pennsylvania there's going to be a lot of people in the rut invading far into public ground and far into some of the big state forests. I'm going to be looking more at the edges. Jeremy from Hunter has been talking a lot on their new thing, Hunt Companion, where he's going into the Pennsylvania mountains quite a bit. So he's got a lot of intel. He's been doing a lot of hiking. I'm going to find the multiflora rose stuff maybe on the outside closer to the fields, a lot of this stuff on the side of mountains is going to get a lot of southern sunlight, which is going to have new growth on south-facing hillsides. That's going to be where a lot of your browse is. Rut, you can either take to the woods and go really deep and sit all day and try to find a bench or something where a good buck could walk, or you're going to hunt on the edges because everyone else has invaded deep in the timber, and you're going to be out toward the edges where these escape routes are for these bucks, or they still could be hitting the edges. That's kind of my advice, is like either one or the other. You either hit on 16 when you're playing blackjack, or you hold on 16. So if you go all in and you like to be deep in the timber, and you can get on a deer by hunting all day deep in and trek out, or maybe you're able to hunt more by going on the outer edges where some of that sunlight is and that browse is right next to some of those pasture or field edges, and then hunt out where you think all the hunters have walked by it. Hunt on that outside. Do research for a year. Hunt one day on the outside, hunt one day deep, and do your own kind of research. I think all of it is about growing as a whitetail hunter and kind of formulating your own style, which you like. Me, I'm an outside guy, but because I hunt so much on the outside where I can kill these deer where they come to me, I really savor those mornings, early November mornings, in that first couple days that I will invade my certain spots in my timber and that I will sit it out and normally get a crack at one of my big deer because I've left it alone till early November. I crash in, I get in there, the does give me a free pass because I'm not in there all the time, and I can normally capitalize on the bucks that aren't paying attention because they're so preoccupied with the does and they've been there making scrapes and doing buck things for so long. So I'm really looking forward to opening my presents on Christmas, but I've been wrapping them and getting ready for Christmas all of October, and I open my presents on early November mornings, and that I normally get what I want for Christmas in early November.
All right.
Yeah.
And, well, we know people have been listening, checking out the show, and sometimes people are responding to things that we've talked about. So here is a question related to something that we talked about in a previous episode.
Hey, Chris. Eric here from Wisconsin. Glad to see you back educating all of us with your knowledge. I got a comment in regards to the captive deer and wildlife getting out. Well, I used to raise deer for research for about 20 years. Although I never had any deer get out, I do know a lot of deer got out. I'm not going to say let out, but got out.
Got out. Accidents.
You know, if you do some research, nearly all record book bucks shot, I'm not saying all, I guess most record book bucks shot have a deer farm within 20 miles. They just that's just how it is. You know, let's just say, you know, love them to DNA sample some of these big hunters who shoot 200+ inch deer every year and see who they come from, because in the deer farm industry, all our deer are DNA'd. So I should say most deer that are relevant are DNA'd. So it's a simple DNA test. I mean, you pull a hair follicle and you'll be able to tell what that buck came from. It's just you'll be shocked at how many are tied to the deer farm industry.
I'm not
Love listening to the new podcast and all your tips and tactics. Take care.
Sounds like somebody I know.
Thanks for calling in, Eric. Thank you for calling in. Really appreciate it. He's speaking my truth, man. So if you aren't familiar with what we're talking about, I think it was episode 5?
I think it's 5.
You guys will have to go listen to all of them.
Listen to all the episodes one after another, like a marathon.
Yeah.
Just set up and listen for a day straight.
Binge them. No, it's definitely an episode that we talked about, 5 or 6, I think. I'm ranting and freaking out about the fact that 200-inch deer and deer over 180 inches are most likely related in link to extra genetics or mineral like an aftershock. Aftershock, if you guys want to look it up, shout out to my man, Matt Owens. He has a company called Aftershock. It opens up the capillaries in the antler growing, completely legal, and it grows them to incredible size, like in elk and in whitetails and in captive deer and outside the fence. We know of people that when deer get out, what is protocol? I mean, it's just a little doe, but the doe's got super genetics, right? And so that over time, exactly what Eric is confirming, we know, and talking to Spook Span and listening to Hunter Podcast and listening to all these places, isn't it convenient that one of the real world hunters in America that makes a living by shooting real world 200-inch chasing mega deer type things just happens to not submit the teeth for the deer for the aging? Why? Because then they would have genetic material that then could be traced back to, right? Chromosomes, genealogy of maybe a fence deer, or maybe not, or maybe it's not the real world, or whatever it is. But I know that if I had cats in a fence, I couldn't keep the cats in a fenced yard very long because they're cats. They want out, right?
I'd like to see your cat farm, though. There are cats in a fence. That's our summer show. Will be like ranching cats.
Like, isn't there a commercial?
There is. Yeah, it's like, I don't know, it's for Snickers or something.
Yeah.
They are not a sponsor, whoever it is. But,
the cats,
but they could be.
The cats come running from everywhere, right? Isn't like on a cat ranch. That's where you got that from.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Well,
you couldn't contain those cats or a duck or a goose or a pheasant or a deer or a cow. There isn't anything that you can keep in a fence, man, that doesn't want to be in a dang fence. Like a cow is so big. Like a cow could just run through. The cow doesn't have any instinct to run. It's not a domesticated cow. Like in Argentina, they have cows and bulls that can kill all the gauchos or whatever they call them, the cowboys down there. And they're some of the wildest, craziest animals I've ever seen are some of these cows that are, that are pastured, and then they attack the farmers.
But I hear they're delicious.
I know they're delicious. But there's no way you're keeping whitetails in a fence, in a pen. There's no way. There accidents happen, and then they get out. What are they going to do? I mean, what are they going to do? What are they going to do? Report themselves to get a fine from the DNR? What is the fine? If anybody out there knows what the fine is, if a person has a pen or a fence and does happen or bucks happen, genetics get out before or after they're ear tagged, or the ear tag falls out, or it gets caught on the fence while they're leaving the fence and gets out and gets 200-inch genetics, 300-inch genetics out into the wild deer herd, what's the punishment? There isn't any. Who gives a crap? Oklahoma's doing it, and it's legal. Why can't we do it? I want to do it. I want somebody to wreck a deer truck in my front yard and have 50 deer get out and run into my property. Why not? They do it in everything else. Like, look, we're talking about the hogs. You got the Yorkshires and the Hampshires and the Durocs, and now they're all intermingled. You can't taste the difference between the Duroc and the Hampshire hog. Why wouldn't you have the 2-year-old 200-inch? I mean, at the end of the day, I would love to have a bunch of 2-year-olds run around that were 160 inches because my friend Joe would finally be happy killing a 160-inch deer. Shout out, Joe. Can't wait till he gets to deer camp. That's cool. That's cool that Eric called in. I just think there's a lot of variables out there, and what it comes down to, Chris, is I'm always just talking about tell the truth.
Yeah, man.
Tell the truth. Tell the truth. Just don't act like you're hunting the real world. Things happen. Deer get out. Genetics get bigger. Deer get bigger. If people are shooting over 180-inch deer, there's some type of incredible mineral being infiltrated, or there are captive deer with incredible genetics, or deer with genetics that got into a system and have helped the genetics out.
Maybe it's the aliens that took the deer in
or
episode.
the freaking
in
aliens.
episode 8, yeah. Maybe they're injecting them with hormones or something.
The aliens
and
took
dropping
them
them back down.
The aliens took them, waited till the corn is off. The aliens to deposit them back, and maybe they shot them with steroids. And
yeah, so the good news is when they drop them back
Anabolic
off,
stuff.
you're going to have some 200 inchers.
I can
on your
only
property.
I can only hope. I can only hope. I
Yeah.
feel like this is a Joe Rogan podcast talking about aliens.
Well, hey, he has great ratings.
Do you
so,
think we could get Alex Jones on here?
I mean,
Alex Jones probably has information about the captive deer situation.
I don't know.
I'd like to put Alex Jones and Don Higgins in the same room.
In like a cage fight? Or like, what do you mean?
I mean, I'd pay for a cage fight,
Yeah, we can make it happen.
but for sure a debate about ethics and politics and deer in pens or fences, or I'd love to take Alex Jones hunting. That would be incredible.
Yeah. Well, hey, man, why don't you share the lowdown?
Well, we got the Lowdown brought to you by the Lowdown high-speed trail camera viewer. Check them out at Hunter's Mate, lowdownviewer.com. It's on our website, bracketshow.com. Lowdown Viewer is where you put an SD card in this bad boy, and you can transfer and download and zoom and plug it into your TV with an HDMI cord. It's a little tablet. It's a high-speed 4K 7-inch screen on this bad boy. Comes in a case. I think everyone needs one of these in their side-by-side, and it's just a really cool, handy thing right here. If you're watching on YouTube, you can see the save card and the camera card. I put the camera card in. I save all the pictures that I want to save to the camera, to the like the hard drive, 128 gig or whatever they call it, megabytes or some type of bytes. And
It's probably gig. Yeah, it's probably not megabytes. It's like a floppy drive from like 1996.
76 terabytes right here. But this whole bad boy on the capture card is full of giant deer. All my deer from all my farm onto one card. And then, check them out. That's the Lowdown. So the Lowdown is get ready. Today is going to kick off the weekend for a lot of deer hunters that have been saving up vacation days and been practicing all year. You've got your stands set. You're going to be very tempted to get in the woods in early morning. It's still October. I caution you on that, but if you're going to do it, make sure that weather is cold, 35 degrees, 40 degrees, and you have consistent winds. This weekend's a crucial weekend. This is the pre-rut. To me, there's a lot of bucks cruising, getting in new locations. There's going to be a lot of hunters in the woods. There's really only 4 incredible weekends from the end of October around this 25th, 26th, through Halloween, another great kind of weekend, November 1 type stuff, and then going into the prime rut stuff. So this is your first pre-rut stuff. There's going to be a lot of big deer die. There's going to be a lot of people hitting the woods and pushing deer around. So if you cannot violate your special areas that you love to hunt, that your deer love to be in, don't, because you got 2-3 more weeks of the rut, and don't blow them up on the first weekend. Just go hunt nice, enjoy this time. The leaves are changing color. It's a great time to be in the woods. It's a good time to spend extra time in the woods. Go out a little bit early and just kind of bring that in. I ask you to just kind of pray while you're out there and ask the Lord to give you peace and direction in your life and where you're at and what you're supposed to be doing. What are your gifts and what are you supposed to be doing, and what are you supposed to be laying at the feet of the of your Savior, and kind of put down those idols. Is deer hunting becoming an idol? Here's one I gotta say. If you're out hunting and your goal is to shoot one of these 160s, and you are wearing all the fancy Sitka and you've got all the fancy saddles and you do all this stuff, and you're hunting so you can be able to show it off on Instagram, I ask you to look in yourself and go, could I share in this experience that I can bring to my soul and tell my kids and tell my wife and shoot this beautiful 8-point buck that's walking through here and enjoy my day, rather than picturing yourself behind that animal holding those antlers for the fancy attention of, look at me, look what I can do. Look what I can do. Don't let that be your hunting success. Look what I can do. Look what I shot. I own land and I keep myself in check, whether I'm going to shoot age before beauty or in the first 2 months of the season, am I going to try to get both? And I'm going to try to get age and beauty out of the bucks on my property because I have set my farm up to wait, that I could wait till December 1st and tag my both bucks in cold weather over food sources. So in the first 2 months, I'm trying to look for age and beauty. Ask yourself what it looks like in your time frame. Do you have minimal amount of time? Are you able to hunt with your kids? And do you shoot that really nice buck because your kids are off school and they can help you track? You go out a Saturday morning, a beautiful deer walks by, and you think, if I make a great shot on this deer, I can go home and get like your two little boys and go, they've never tracked a deer before. You give them flashlights. It's a nice, that's this weekend. This weekend is like one of those beautiful nights where you could have a bonfire while your deer, while you're waiting to go track your deer or whatever, and take your kids out, take the neighbor kids out there. Getting a little emotional on that, but think about that. My friend Nathan did that one year where he passed up one of the biggest deer of his life because it wasn't a 150. And I said, dude, if you'd have shot that deer in all these leaves on Halloween weekend, you could have taken your daughter and your son and your wife and tracked this deer through the leaves, created an incredible experience, and then ate that deer the next day and cut it up and took your time. Don't wait till it's frigid and cold to try to take those kids out there. This weekend's the weekend that if you were going to enjoy the whole hunting experience and share it with people on the track and on the whatever, make a clean shot, make an ethical shot, and pray about what that hunting is, that experience is for you. Maybe it's not waiting till December and shooting the biggest buck. Maybe it's right now having a nice one that you can experience with everybody. That's what I kind of put on your heart. That's from Uncle Bubby, the big brother, the uncle, to have you think about. And that's episode 9, right?
Yeah, man. Keep on rolling.
Yeah. Can you leave us with a piece of scripture? What was church about Sunday? I watched online. You went. What do we have to leave everybody with if we were going to compel them right now?
Well, I don't have the exact verse to
putting you on the spot.
Yeah, no, which I always appreciate being put on the spot. I would say, I need to remember the exact reference. I can see if I can look it up, but whatever you do in word and deed, do it unto the Lord. And I would say that, like, when it comes to what we're talking about, like whether it's hunting, or it's your work, or it's your hobbies, it's your relationships, doing that unto the Lord, that will bring honor to Him and ultimately bring joy to you and those that are around you as well.
Yeah. Yeah. We just got out of Jonah, right?
Yeah, we did. Yeah.
And that's kind of one of those things we're running from what God has for you, right? Like you're running from what God has from you. No matter if you think people are horrible like the Ninevites and you don't want to go tell them about the gospel or the good news or whatever, like, isn't that what it's about? It's like, hey, all knees will bow, all heads, all, what is it? All heads will bow, all knees, your knees.
Every knee shall bow and every tongue confess
that
Jesus Christ is Lord.
Yeah, so it's really not my business. I should be praying for those that I have those ill thoughts about. I'm only human.
Yeah. Well, yeah, we're all human. We're all fallen.
A work in progress.
Just we're fallen people. That we have our issues, but like you've talked about as far as sanctification, really just seeking to continually follow the Lord's will for our lives, and that path looks different for everyone. There will certainly be some commonality, but I can look at so many moments in my life where I could not have predicted the path that I've gone down. But in hindsight, it's easier to see how those moments have led to where I am now. So.
And somebody was talking the other day about how I get a lot of this is that, like, I will read something or I'll go to church on Sunday or whatever. And, as fast as my brain is, I'm not real good at retaining things that are just give me the line, give me the knowledge, and give me the information. I don't need the whole song and dance. So church is sometimes tough for me because it's meant for everybody, and it's meant to just be there and be in it. And I say, well, I don't remember what I ate last week. So, but it nourished me in that moment. Right? So like even the sacrifice of going with my wife and my friends to church, or sacrificing that time and being there and be like, I never get anything out of it. I can't remember when I leave. Well, it nourishes me for that minute, that moment, that whatever. And that continued nourishment, you stay healthy. Right?
To reiterate what I said earlier, just so I have it exact, it's from Colossians 3, verse 17. And whatever you do, in word or deed, do everything in the name of the Lord Jesus, giving thanks to God the Father through him. And I really would say that's what we're seeking to do.
Yep. Yeah. It's James 1:13 also, right? Every good thing, great thing comes from above.
Yeah, every good and perfect gift.
Love it. Peace out, y'all. You guys have a great season. We're in the thick of it. I'm out of coffee. So see you guys next week. Have fun this weekend. Keep your eyes on the back of them lungs. Stay away from that shoulder. Big expandable.